Hello there, and welcome to the Shirley Jones Douglas Show. Please know that I appreciate every time you tune in and keep on tuning in. I'm going to get right to our guest because she has so much information for us that we need to start quickly. And you know who this lady is. It's that time of the year, and the show is called The Tax Lady Speaks. So you know my guest is Mrs. Michele Gaines. Hello, Ms. Michele.
Hi, Miss Shirley. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm glad you
Thanks
are
for
here.
having me back. Thank you to your
always.
audience for continuing to tune in
Oh, yeah.
to a good show. This is a good lady here.
And there's a good lady here. She's
So-
tiny, but she's all right. Plus, she's one of my best friends. So.
And she still picks on me.
And I still pick on her. If you recall, I did a show called Pick on Michele Show. And so that's the way we are.
Yeah.
We're still that way. You don't do PJ talk.
Right.
I do it very little now.
Oh,
you
okay.
didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, because the show kind of got made a little twists and turns, but
Okay,
we'll get
okay.
back to it. one day.
Okay.
All right, we're going to start off with you talking about W-2s.
W-2s. All right. So, because of all the identity theft and fraud and folks trying to steal your refund by filing a false tax return, IRS, through a series of seminars and summits and pulling the tax professional community, the banking community, and law enforcement and so forth came together, and they've come up with a whole way of trying to limit or reduce as much as possible that type of activity. So this year, there's a pilot test that they instituted by putting, the test is that, the pilot is that they put a code on your W-2 form. So when you get your W-2, you may not even notice the code, but when you take that W-2 to a professional to get your tax return prepared, they're going to know that they're going to look at that W-2 for that code. That code is going to let IRS know that you are the person named on that W-2. You are the person, this is the right income, this is the company, it's all legitimate. Why start there? Because the fraudsters created W-2s. And that's how they would find out, they would get your information, and then they would create a W-2 as if you, instead of, you know, the company that you really work for, they would create a company. They would create a tax ID number. They would create all the information that they needed to get this W-2.
Once they get your Social Security number, that's it.
That's it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that once they see the success of that pilot, then it will expand, and eventually everyone's W-2 will have an IRS code, a particular code on it that will need to be used in order to process your tax return.
I wonder what they're going to do to get around that one.
Well, they'll
find a way.
They'll find I'm sure, but all
for the
we can
meantime.
do is continue what we do
That's right.
and help to protect ourselves as much as possible.
At
Okay.
least we have a breather
Yes.
that, you know, things are going to be right.
And we
Until
are,
such
all
time.
of us are trying to come together and work as a unit, which is really good. IRS, you know, everybody, there are many people who really, you know, they still don't like IRS, but it's not the IRS who created this issue
Oh, yes.
and so forth. So, but they are trying to fix it. And some of the fraud doesn't even begin with IRS and the tax returns. A lot of the fraud begins with your inability to accept your responsibility to protect your data, keeping everything on your laptop or your home computer without firewalls. Okay, and people can go right in and get your information and so forth. So that's not IRS's fault. Okay.
Well, that's a
So-
good point to speak about, because people, there are some people who are not even aware that they need to get firewalls. So
That's true.
particularly I would think senior citizens.
Well, you don't have many senior citizens.
And young people, as far as that goes.
It's mostly the young people, the working class and so forth. And people, they put all their information out there, and they have, what do you call these the cameras on their computers, so everybody can see everything. If you have a camera on your screen for FaceTime or something else, somebody else can see too.
Yeah.
They can get right in and they can see everything that you're doing. They can see everything in your computer and so forth.
Wow,
I know.
I mean,
and they're coming.
Everything?
And so
how do
the
you
latest,
protect that? I mean, I know you're not here to talk about computers.
well, what I purchased a new computer last year, and what I did was, first of all, I don't go into crazy websites and so forth, okay? But I mean, I do shop online as well. But so what I did was I took a piece of black electrical tape and I put it across that lens so they can't see anything.
Right.
Right. That's what I did. I don't know
Well,
about anybody
to be
else.
honest now, I was smart enough to do that.
Okay.
I didn't use tape, but I
Yeah.
used something different.
Right.
But I did cover that up.
Yeah, I cover it up.
But they
so
can't, as long as it's unplugged, they can't do anything. But very few people unplug their. Well, that's not so true if you have a battery that.
Yeah, like I don't unplug. But I covered that up and so forth. Now my husband said, "Well, you don't use it, so if you turn it on, that's when they can see everything." I said, "Well, I'm not taking any chances."
Well, I had a bad habit of leaving my computer on. So in that event, you just need to have something over it at all times.
Exactly. Right,
Yeah.
so they can't see anything that's going on. So that's one of the changes. That's a big change for the 2017. But let me talk a little bit about the 2017 season. It opened yesterday, January 23. Actually, taxpayers could begin to get their tax returns prepared, I think as early as January 11, but the software companies had to hold that return until today, okay? Oh, no, I'm sorry, until yesterday, January 23rd, because the day is 24th. So yesterday, tax season opened, and tax season this year closes on April 18th. April 15 is a Saturday. Now, normally that would mean Monday the 17th, but Monday the 17th is Emancipation Day, which is a Washington, D.C. holiday. So the tax filing season doesn't end until April 18th, Tuesday.
Okay.
The extensions are the same. The extensions are October 17th instead of October 15th, because it's the same. It's a Saturday or a Sunday, and then you have a day or so extra. So you're getting a couple of extra days.
And there
this
is a
year.
penalty for filing, even for that, right?
There is only a penalty that will be issued if you file for an extension and you have a liability, you owe tax, you're not getting a refund, and you don't pay that tax on April 18th.
Oh, 18th, that's
Right. If you pay it on April 18th, then you're fine. You can file the document in October. But if you don't pay it and you file the document,
That penalty
that
starts.
penalty starts on April 15th all the way through.
Wow.
Exactly. And it accrues on the previous month's balance all the way down. Exactly. So if you have a $1,000 or $1,500 tax liability, by October it's going to be probably around $1,900. So pay your tax.
Ouch.
Pay your tax. What happens with a lot of companies, especially large companies, because they get these large accounting houses to do their tax returns, which is fine. But they file extensions for them, and they don't tell them that they have a tax liability. They just file the extension, and then when they prepare and file the tax return, they just say, "Here's your tax," and they don't really tell them that probably 200 grand of this is penalty and interest. They don't tell them. I've found out. I had a company, $5 million company, who was paying $75,000, $80,000 a year in penalty and interest because they weren't paying her tax in April. They were holding it, just filing the extension and holding it because it's not their money. So they don't really take the time. A lot of them. Now there are probably some who do. But be careful.
How could they stay in business by doing that?
Because if you don't know, I mean, if you don't understand, if you're giving it to an accounting firm and you just figure it's a tax and that's what's due, okay? They send you all the documents, but then all they do is put it in the mail and send it to you. These folks don't understand how to read the tax return, basically. They really don't, some of them. And they end up with, they just figure, you know, this is what it is in taxation. This is what it is. This is what it costs.
But it could have been avoided.
And it could have been avoided. Exactly. Exactly. So from the smaller company to the larger company, you know, pay attention to the amount of tax that you owe and interest and penalty, or interest and penalty on that tax, because that interest and penalty, if you have filed for an extension, then you should say to whoever is preparing your tax return, if you're going to file an extension for me, make sure you make a payment for me on April 18th. Even if you make an overpayment, all IRS is going to do is send it back to you in refund. So you're better off. You're better off. Have it, you know, yeah. But they don't tell you, okay? All right, so.
You scare me every time you come on the show. And I don't even have all those things to worry about.
It's all good stuff.
It's all good stuff
right.
for my viewers,
Exactly,
yes, indeed.
exactly.
And for me, because I tell people things that you've told me.
I know.
I could file your taxes. I've got so much this lady
No,
right
she
here.
can't file your taxes. Don't you believe
I can't even
one
file
word
my
of
own.
that?
She does Shirley's taxes.
So the one of the other things I want to point out is that IRS is stressing this year that people who paper file begin to learn how to e-file. E-filing your return makes everything a lot more efficient. So if you're traditionally someone who does a paper file, you know, you need to learn how to move in that direction. If you can't do it yourself, get some help, of course. Another thing is IRS is finally helping us in the tax practice community, those of us that are tax professionals, and they're saying, you know, really you should have your tax return prepared by a professional, because the codes have gotten a lot more complicated in the way that we're applying them now. We as tax professionals have to keep up with our certifications and education every year. Like I became an enrolled agent in 2016. Yay! And
Now, tell them what that means real quick.
well, what that means is I am enrolled to practice before IRS. That means I can not just prepare your tax return, but officially represent you in all kinds of tax issues up through the appeals process, no matter where you live in the country. So they call us America's tax experts, and it's not an easy certification to get. You have to sit for a 12-hour test. They break it up into 4-hour segments, but it's pretty grueling and so forth. But it tests your knowledge about tax law, not about tax practice, which is the difference and so forth. So I achieved that. Yay.
Right. But and essentially what she's saying is that if you find yourself in court, she can represent you in court.
Not yet. I did take that test. I can go up to the tax court door, but I can't go in. So this past November, I did sit for the tax court test, but I won't know the results of that until May.
Oh.
I won't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's hope.
She is the almost lady.
Almost.
Because you'll get that.
Right. So, okay, there was something. Oh, what did I just finish with? I just finished with, oh, the filing season. Okay. So we talked about the filing season. And the other major for a lot of people is going to be the earned income tax credit and the additional child tax credit and the child tax credit. So last year, or last filing season, IRS said if you do not have a Social Security number for yourself, your spouse, if you're filing a joint return, and each of the children that you're claiming for earned income tax credit, you can't file your return and put applied. You have to have that number at the time.
What does that mean, apply? Oh,
that you've applied for a Social Security
okay,
number.
it already has to be in your possession.
Exactly,
Okay.
and on the return. This year, IRS is not issuing any refunds for those who apply for earned income tax credit, child tax credit, or the additional child tax credit until February 15th. So you can file your tax return now, but don't look for your refund until probably the end of February if you are asking for the refundable credits in those three categories.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Why
So,
are they
so
doing
that's,
that?
that's an extra amount of time of how much,
Yeah, normally you would file your return, if you filed your return now, within the next 21 days, you would get your refund. But because of refund fraud, theft, ID theft, and so forth, IRS said if you are applying for any of those credits, then we will not process your return until February 15th.
okay.
Now, will they send everything out on February 15th? Absolutely not. So, but
And the
if you-
purpose for that is for investigation?
Yes, so that
Okay.
they can filter and make sure that your
The right
return.
people are getting
Exactly.
the right money.
Right,
Wow.
Right.
So they are really taking big steps.
right. They're taking big steps. Yes, they
Okay.
are, absolutely. And that's really, a lot of people are not, you know, I've heard some grumbling and so forth, and I said, you'd probably grumble a lot louder if you filed a return and you got a $4,000 refund that you're not going to get because of ID theft, and it's going to take you now 18 months for IRS to investigate to make sure
Right.
before you get your refund.
And-
So a few extra days, come on.
That's right. It's worth
worth it.
Because we're already gearing up what we're going to do with that money.
I know.
When it comes.
I know.
So it's worth it.
It is definitely worth it. You can, as far as filing is concerned, if your income falls below $64,000, you can free file using the software companies. And I'm pretty sure by now that everyone knows that IRS does not, you can't file, I should turn this down. Let me mute this. Keeps beeping, sorry. IRS, when you file your return, if you're doing it yourself, you're using a software company. You're not going to IRS. So there are vendors that have all the software that IRS has said, well, they've taken a look at who you are. Your software has to meet certain criteria and so forth. And if that is the case, then you can do that. If you are doing something other than the easiest form, you should probably contact a professional to get your taxes done. I had a client who, in 2013, her company gave them a certain, all the employees said, we're going to give you some tax software so you can do your tax return yourself. She thought that was great, so she did it. Well, guess what? She called me a couple of months ago. She was being audited because they told her to do something, and it was totally wrong. When I looked at the form, I was like, but you're not a corporation, so you can't do this. She said, well, I said, did you tell them that you were a company? And she said, absolutely not. She said, but they told me to go ahead and put it on this schedule, and it was completely wrong, and it cost her like $4,800
Oh my
in tax
goodness.
liability. Right. So I fixed it, but it's, she's, yeah, and she's so angry. So, and this is a very intelligent woman. This woman's in her second or third year of law school. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with smarts.
It's
It's not her lane.
It's a law. It's your lack of knowledge
it's your
of a subject.
Exactly.
It
So
doesn't make
don't
you-
try to do this because it makes me the minus man. You're going to pay me now or pay me later.
Right.
But
Right.
it's going to happen.
Right.
If you try to fix your own brakes on the car, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, my car won't stop.
Right.
My car
Don't-
won't stop.
Right. So don't do it. So I'm glad that they are, they meaning IRS. I'm glad that they're shifting people and saying, first of all, you really need to be in an electronic filing mode, and secondly, you do really need to tap into a professional for some help in filing your tax return.
Yeah.
Now, it's not if you are under a certain amount of income, you can go to the volunteer income tax clinics. And in Pittsburgh, I believe it's operated by the University of Pittsburgh. Okay? But you have to be within a certain income in order to get the free services. Otherwise, you should just know that you're going to be protected by going to someone who can do this for you. Okay? You have that scary look on your face.
I know
again.
because I mean, but the different locations for people under certain income, where they go, is it they're protected? I mean, in that.
Right, they are protected. In other words, if you're someone who's making, I don't know, $10, $15, $20, $25,000 a year, then you, in all likelihood, qualify for free services. And if you go to they're called VITA clinic, Volunteer Income Tax Clinics.
Okay.
If you go to a VITA clinic, they will prepare these are retired IRS people, tax attorneys.
I mean, could it be someplace, and this is just an example, like a YMCA offers that?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the YMCA offers that. Well, they did last year. I don't know if they are going to do it this year.
Well, you can make a phone call.
But they can make a phone call, but I know that there's a VITA clinic at Pitt.
Okay.
Absolutely, in Oakland, yeah.
right.
And they can call and make an appointment, okay. Do you need a break yet?
No, I'm grueling through it, and plus I'm getting a little bit smart because of you.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
But I say if you really want the professional, call Michelle.
Yes, can you put up my number? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
We only have 3 minutes left.
That's it? Okay.
You know what? Maybe we can go another 15 minutes. Could you cover that? Another 15 minutes.
I can cover that.
Okay,
I can
handle
cover
that.
Yeah. I could stay here all day because
because we haven't even touched these other ones.
well, I know it's like I said, we could stay here all day. There's a lot of information. One of the things that are the next two things I want to talk about is in covering all the new stuff. There is a redefinition of businesses, accounting guidelines for businesses. Okay. So it's too much to go into in a few minutes, but just know that IRS is redefining or has redefined businesses and the accounting, especially those who are in cash businesses, like your barbershops and your hair salons and nail salons and so forth. They're cash businesses. That has all been redefined. So
What's the biggest example? I mean, the most crucial.
It's going to be record keeping. It's
They're going to
record
produce
keeping.
records?
Well, right, because cash businesses don't normally produce, they have handwritten records, some of them, and so forth. And yeah, there's probably going to be, and I'm not sure about all of the changes because I haven't even had a chance to look at it totally myself. But when they tell me that they're redefining the definition of a business based upon accounting guidelines and so forth, then that tells me that they're going to look at this business and say, you know what, you are no longer going to be able to just handwrite something and call it a day, basically. There's going to be, if you are someone who sews, okay, and you really don't do, you can't figure out how to take what you do and plug it into the standards of accounting guidelines, then they're probably not going to recognize you as a business. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's going to be just something that you do.
Oh.
Right.
So, so in other words, there are things that you wouldn't be able to deduct as, oh my goodness.
Right, exactly.
So it's almost like an illegitimate child.
Exactly.
So what do they do to be recognized as a true business?
That put themselves in the position of falling into the guidelines. Everybody's going to have to fall into the guidelines.
And this change takes place as of when?
As of 2018.
Oh, that's coming down the road.
That's coming down the road, right, yeah.
Oh,
they can't just...
did you hear that, people?
So you have, right, but now is the time to know so that you can...
Yes, but who knows?
Year. Well, that's why you go to somebody who can prepare your tax return, who can ask you questions. And when you say to them, when you bring me your documents and I say, oh, you operate this X business, and I can say, okay, let's take a look at what's getting ready to happen, because I'm supposed to know that. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to be able to say to you, here's what's getting ready to happen, so let's take a look at what we need to do so that your business falls into the guidelines.
But here's the problem. Because those who are not legitimate tax preparers
can't do that.
They cannot, because they don't get the information.
That's right. And like you said, they're not legitimate. And part of the tax fraud issue comes from that community, okay? Because they're doing things.
But there are good people who think they're helping someone.
Right, but
but they don't know what they're doing because they're not kept up with the new tax regulations.
That's right. And here's the thing: they know that. Some of them, most of them, they know that, but they say, well, here, we'll just do it this way. So when they don't keep up with the new regulations, and they don't sign your return, and they don't have what we call a P10, a preparer tax ID number, and they can't e-file it because they don't have an e-fin, an e-file tax ID number. They can't protect you. They can't protect themselves, which means they definitely can't protect you.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody who is trying to do tax returns under the table, on the side, and so forth, they don't have any of this information. They don't take any of the updated certifications and classes to keep you, the webinars and seminars and so forth, to keep us fresh.
That's awful.
That they do it?
I mean, that's awful for a business to think that they're, saving money to get it done. Because some of it's totally in ignorance. It has to be. Because you wouldn't deliberately do that to yourself.
Oh, you'd be surprised. Oh, you'd be surprised. There are some who think they can get away with it. The business? And the preparer.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely, they think.
Well, if your sight is set on, I can get away with this, then you're just open to any consequences that face.
Now, it's not everybody, like you said.
No, right.
It's not everybody.
But there are some people who are in total ignorance.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
Do the stuff right.
Got to do it right. And it's so worth it to do it right, to get it right, because the alternative can take years to undo. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you want to go to bed every night worried about a tax bill, because nothing moves quickly through IRS, everything, they work on a 30-day to a 6-month turnaround on everything. So, you know, and in the meantime, they may stop the running of penalty and interest while they're looking at it, but then at the end, if it comes out that you're still in the wrong, all that penalty is added back, all that interest is added back. So it's just not worth it.
Oh my goodness.
It really isn't worth
What
it.
a burden.
Yes, yes, I know, I know. So I always say, listen, guys, nothing's moving fast except God's chariot. That's moving quickly. So pay attention to the Bible. However, this moves very, very slowly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That is so scary. You have any other scary things for us that make us, you know, our brows will go up to our forehead, way up to the hairline?
You do have, as taxpayers, and I talked about this last year, but I bring it up again because each year it gets